Hi, I'm Nathan from FTC Team 4717, and welcome to the second episode of Onshape Assemblies. In this episode, we're going to go over how to use the Revolute Mate. So to start out, I'm going to create a new assembly. So I'm going to go down to this plus button and click Create Assembly. Then I'm going to move this assembly down to the end just to stay organized. And now that I have a new assembly open, I'm going to press Insert, and we're going to bring in our two pieces. So we're going to do this a little bit differently from how we did it with the Fasten Mate. The Fasten Mate, we brought in two parts from the same part studio, and this time we're just going to do two parts from different part studios in the same document. So the first piece is this gear, and then the second piece is this base piece. So then I'm going to press the green check mark to confirm those. And then I'm just going to move this out of the way because I want to fasten this base piece to the origin. So this is going to do the same thing as fixing it, except it'll be directly on the origin. It doesn't make a huge difference, but I just like it to be centered. I'm going to click the bottom of this piece. Then I'm going to click on the origin, and I've got to make sure that all of the axes are oriented right with, you can see right there, the blue one is facing upwards. That'll just keep this right side up. So if I click the check mark, I now have that mated into the center, and I can no longer move it around at all, and it's directly on top of the origin. So now what I want to do is I want to make this gear rotate on this pin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Revolute Mate, which is located right next to the Fasten Mate, which we went over in the last tutorial, and it works in a very similar way. It uses mate connectors. So the first mate connector is going to be on the bottom of the gear, and we're going to choose the one that's directly in the center of this hole. So if I just hover over the circle and click there, you'll see a mate connector forms. Then I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom of this pin, and I'm going to press the check mark. So now I have my gear here, and if I try to spin it around, you can see that it spins around that pin piece, and I can make it spin indefinitely in any direction. So one thing that we might want to change is we might want to bring the gear a little bit up on this pin. You can see it's exactly level with this surface, which is a little bit unrealistic. So I'm going to go ahead and edit the Revolute Mate by double clicking on it. Then I'm going to click this checkbox next to offset, which will give me more options. So the first one I want to change is the offset Z distance, and if I change that to 0.05 inches and press enter, you'll see that the gear goes down, which is the opposite of what I want. I want it to go up. So I'm going to add a negative out front, and there you go. So the gear isn't perfectly flush with this part, but I'm going to leave it for now, and we're going to move on to the rotation angle. So if I change this to 90 degrees and press enter, you'll see that the gear is now rotated. So you can just rotate your mate by using that rotation angle rather than completely redoing the mate. For this example, I don't actually want that, so I'm just going to put 0 in there. And then I'm going to create a limit. So what the limit will do is it'll make the gear only able to turn a certain amount of degrees. So where before we were able to spin it indefinitely, this will limit it. So I'm going to start with my minimum to 0 degrees and my maximum at 360. Then I'm going to press enter, and I'm going to press the check mark to confirm those changes, and then I'll show you what that's done. So when I try to rotate this gear in this direction, you'll see that it moves the same as it did before, but eventually, once we get to 360 degrees, it'll stop and I can't move it anymore. The same thing will happen if I go back 360 degrees to where we started. It'll stop and I can't move it anymore. So that's what that limit does. So now that we've added our limit and offset, I'm going to show you one more thing that you can do with mates and how to insert assemblies. So if I go up to the insert button, just like how you can insert part studios like we've been doing, you can also insert assemblies. So if I go over to assembly, and I go over to assembly 1, which we created in the last video, and I just bring that into this document once it loads, and I just click, press the green check mark just like we've been doing. So you can see it's kind of large compared to the gear, but I'll show you how this works anyway. So I can stack mates, which means that if I use another mate on top of that Revolute Mate, so if I mate this to the gear, this piece will spin with the gear. So I'm going to click this Fasten Mate tool. Then I'm going to use the bottom of this part, and I'm just going to use the top of this gear. And you can see that one part of the old piece, one part of the other piece has now snapped onto the gear, and the rest hasn't come with it. So it looks like something's gone wrong here because we want all of the pieces to stay assembled on top of here. But if you just press the green check mark, everything else will go back to its correct place. So you don't need to worry about things not continuing before you confirm the mate. So now when I try to spin this gear, you'll see that the piece on top of it moves with the exact same limits that we created on the gear. But you can see it goes 360 degrees all the way around and then stops. And we can also control it from this piece. We don't have to click on that gear to rotate it. So I can click up here and it'll have the same exact limits. So that's how you can combine different mates, different types of mates, to create a larger, more complex assembly. You don't have to keep it to just two pieces sticking together. You can have as many as you want, and they all interact exactly how you would expect them to. That's it for this episode, so thanks for watching, and see you next time.